Hi there, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Anita Adefuye. I wear many hats: author, mentor, coach, business owner, career woman. Yeah, I'm a lot of things, but I'm also an advocate. And today's video is going to focus on advocacy piece. Specifically, I want to talk about what to do if you live with an abuser. But first, happy new month. Welcome to the end of the beginning of the end of 2022. I hope that you've had a great year. I have had a blast this year, and I can't wait to see what 2023 holds for me, and I hope that that's the same way you feel, and I pray that everything your heart desires come to pass before the end of this year, in Jesus' name. All right, so very quickly today, I want to be talking about what to do if you live with an abuser. Now, if you've been following my Loud Silences blog post, you know that we wrote about International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women and Girls. And there's a 16 days of activism on that topic going on. And this video, just think of this video as one of those things that happen, because the truth is that for all you know, somebody who you know that lives close to you, that you see every day, they're all smiling and all that, they might be going through abuse, violence at home, and they can't even speak up about it. And I don't kid myself that there are people who look all good and smiley, but then they're going through stuff at home that they don't talk to anybody about, or they feel trapped in that place. And so today's video really is for you. If you feel like, oh my God, I'm living with this person, I don't know what to do, and I don't know how to protect myself. I know exactly how you feel. I have been there before. I have lived with abusers as a child. Well, thankfully not as an adult, but I've lived with abusers as a child. And abuse can take different forms. It can take violence, physical violence form. It can take emotional abuse or psychological abuse. It can be sexual violence. It can be even a combination of all of these things. And so for me, it was that I had experienced both physical and emotional as a child and sexual abuse. So I will be speaking from that perspective. Now, a quick disclaimer that I want to put forward here is that I know you're probably thinking, well, if someone is facing abuse, do the needful, get up, get out, and leave. But I wish it were that simple. All right, it's not. Unfortunately, it's not it should be simple, quite frankly, but it's not, unfortunately. And so I want to quickly just set a premise on this. It's that if you're living with somebody that you can do something about, and which is why I said I did not live with anybody as an adult that was abusing me. No, all I had was being a child. Being a small child and being a teenager is what I had experienced. Now, if you're an adult living with an abuser, please, yours is simple. And I know it's not even that simple either, because there's a lot of emotional layers of things going on. But please do the needful. Get up, get out, and leave. Separate yourself from them. And then if you feel like I still need to work on this relationship, please remove yourself from the place of abuse first, and then start to work it out from there. Please. Whatever shame you think you're afraid of, whatever I don't want people to think or say, the truth is that, God forbid, if you die, people will still come and say. And that's the truth. That's the sad reality. And in that time, they will blame you. So please, if you're an adult, you already have number one power, which is the power to make decision. And I need you to make a decision that saves your life. And please leave, or separate yourself and continue to work on the relationship. Now, this is really focused from a place of you're maybe an underage person who still has to depend on someone else, and you cannot really make certain decisions for yourself. For me, what that looked like was being 7-year-old and living with an auntie who, there's a borderline between discipline and abuse. And I really wish that Nigerians would understand that. And this is my game face now. Nigerians, there is a borderline between abuse and discipline. A lot of us have crossed that line and we don't even know it. And worse still, we won't even acknowledge it to ourselves. Okay? There is a line. Stop crossing that line. A lot of things we do, we call discipline, is abuse. I look back on some of the things that I got beat for. They were just things that, what, I peed the bed. Okay, so what? Yes, I'm ranting. The truth is that traumatized children pee the bed. Some, even well into their late teens, will pee the bed. And that's what it is. So you're adding trauma to trauma, and then you're wondering why the child is behaving certain ways. Okay, I snuck out to take milk that I shouldn't have taken. If you have fed me like you should have, I won't be trying to steal, and that's just the truth. Or even trying to help the child understand, this is what you did, it is wrong, and this is why I'm going to have to punish you because there are consequences for action. Don't get me wrong, I discipline my children. But I also understand that there is a thin line between discipline and abuse, and a lot of us have crossed that, and we think it's okay. It is not okay. So please, there is a line. Don't cross it. And so I've lived with that, and I couldn't do much about it. But from that perspective, here's something that can be done. If you're an adult who is watching and seeing what's going on, please call that person to order. These days, there are organizations that allow you to report someone anonymously, or if you even want to put your face behind it as the reporter, you can do that. So please do that for them. Save a child's life. Save a child from trauma. Okay? And I've also experienced sexual abuse from living with my father, especially. So if you've read my book, you already know that, unfortunately, one of the people who had abused me was my own father. And so I'm going to be speaking from that perspective, because in that instance, the truth is, where do I run to? And so that's the kind of, you don't have the power to make decisions that I'm talking about. Who do I even report to? Okay, because the truth is, there are people whose situation is exactly just that. The people they're living with are the ones that are abusing them, and they don't know what to do. So what do you do when the person who has the final authority, so to speak, over your life is your abuser and is the person you have to live with? What do you do? And that's what I'm going to be focusing on today. So number one, you want to acknowledge to yourself that you're in an abusive situation. Trying to hide it and pretend like it's not happening doesn't help you, and that's the truth. And for me, when I look back, I realized that it was one of the biggest errors that I made, was that, and I get it, because sometimes our body's going to shock and we're trying to make sense and we're trying to process, right? And so just admitting that this is happening already helps you and gives you, you have people creeping around. I can see them, they don't even realize I can see them. Anyway, you all know that this is unscripted because the message is more important than, the perfection of this. All right, so admitting to yourself. Once you admit to yourself, then you can it's easier to start to think about, what else can I do? So number two, if you can y'all tell I had to pause to do a quick discipline. Anyway, so if there's someone in the house that you can open up to, then please do. Now, one of two things will happen. They would either believe you and try to help you, or they won't believe you and you're back to square one. Now, in my case, I wasn't believed and I was back to square one. The problem is, now my dad already also knew that I was trying to get help, and that just took things to a whole new level. And quite frankly, it went from just sexual molestation to even physical. There were bouts of anger that sometimes he'll display towards me. Others couldn't understand why he was suddenly so angry at his favorite child, but that started to happen, unfortunately. But at least I tried. But at least you'll try, right? Now, if you're with somebody who lives in the house as well, then I encourage you to talk to them about potentially just, you know what? You don't believe me, I get it, that's fine. But this person usually comes around this time. How about you do that? I remember a story of one of my friends when I was in secondary school or high school, and that was the situation. The husband, her sister's husband, was molesting their domestic help, and this girl was maybe like 12, 13, somewhere there. And when she tried to open up, the woman she works for beat her up and said, how dare you bring such accusations against my husband, da 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 da. And so this friend of mine who was living with them, she's one very nicely crazy person. And I remember she said, she just thought to herself, well, what if this girl is not lying? And she snuck into the girl's room, hid under the duvets, haven't heard the whole story. And true to words, the man came around the same time that the girl said he would usually show up. And then he started trying to do stuff like, hey, are you shy? That don't worry, that next time don't try to report me like that, blah, 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 blah. And next thing she was like, oh my God, it is true. And so she started yelling, and then her sister came, saw the situation, and that's how that girl was believed. Now, if you have an opportunity to do something like that, so yes, set a trap, because the truth is that sometimes seeing is believing. Now, if you've just recently opened up, the truth is that the person might back off for a bit, but give it the time. Play the long-term game to set that trap for them so that people can see that you're not lying. Especially, again, in a case where you know that it's your word against theirs, and their word would always prevail. I mean, who am I supposed to tell them? My father is doing stuff to me and they'll believe me over him? Nobody. Right? And so that's number 2 thing you can do. So number 1, admit that it's happening, so that it helps you keep a mindset that says, okay, this is happening to me, it's not good, how do I get out? Number 2, if you report them to someone, and depending on that one, you can't control what the response will be. If it responds favorably, then good for you. If it doesn't respond favorably, then go to number 3, set a trap so that it comes out in the open. And really, that's all you're trying to do, is to make sure that things come out in the open. Now, if all of those fail, then let's go to number 4. Understand their triggers and start to position yourself to avoid it. Now, I'll tell you, for my dad especially, yes, there was all of those things happening, but I also knew that, number 1, whenever he hung around certain friends, I was sure to receive something that night or that day. And so knowing that, whenever those kinds of people are around, believe you me, I am out of the house. I don't come back until I know he's off to bed. That's when I come back. Now, the good thing is that at the time when all this started, I used to share a room with my brother. And the good thing was that because sometimes my brother was in the room, he wouldn't show up. And so that would help me. So I understood that. Number 2, I understood that there were certain seasons, especially when maybe he was in some religious stuff, not Christian, religious stuff, that told them they needed to do certain things. And whenever those timelines came around, I did my best to disappear. We had family friends that would visit, that would spend time with. And those are the times that I would say, oh, can I go visit this person? He didn't even realize that I started monitoring his life to that detail, right? And so I would take those times to escape. Now, if you've read my book, you know that one of those instances, I was with one family and I had to go back home. And that was the epiphany of the time that, things really went south, right? And that one, for instance, was because I think at that point he figured out that I had studied his pattern and I had escaped. But then he made a request for me to come home and help him do some stuff. I couldn't open up to the family that I don't want to go because of this reason. They thought I was trying to be disrespectful. And so I went, and of course things played out the way they did. I haven't read my book. That's a cue to say go read it so you understand what story there I'm talking about. If you have, I'd like to hear, what you thought about that and hearing this now. And so study their pattern, study their triggers. Everybody has a trigger, especially when they're doing things like that. If you notice that it's when nobody is home that the person comes up, then you want to make sure that you leave the house anytime, you're home alone with them, or you lock yourself in. I used to do that. Boy, there were times I'll be pressed, but I can't go out and I have to stay home, and I'll just lock up my room and stay there. In fact, after a while, I had a bucket that I'll secretly sometimes pee in. So please, whatever you need to do to protect yourself until you're of age enough to get out, or until you get help. The next thing you can do, I don't even know what number we're on now, is now, at the time when I leave, these things were not existent, but in today's world they are, is give an anonymous call for yourself and report them. There are organizations that help with situations like this these days, and there are lots of them. Now, if I'll put the links to some organizations right where I live in Regina, Saskatchewan. If you're in this area, then I encourage you, if you see or hear anything like that, please put out a call to help someone or to help yourself. And if you're in Nigeria, which is where I grew up and had my own experiences, I'll also share links to some organizations that I have personally worked with, and I trust that they do due diligence. I'll also share links to those organizations so that if you need to, you can contact them and access them. Now, you can make a call anonymously to one of those organizations and report the case as if it wasn't you. Or you can even let them know you're the victim, but that you would prefer that if you were kept anonymous, if if there was just a way they can look into things. What they will typically do is temporarily remove you from the situation and then launch an investigation. And again, remember, sets a trap. Now, at this point, if you can't, start gathering your evidences. Because again, if anything makes it to a court of law, the truth is that it's evidences that will stack up and would make the day. So start gathering your evidences. If you can start recording, conversations, record conversations. If you can start taking videos, pictures, do that, whatever helps you. Now, in a parent-child relationship, I know this is hard, because the truth is, to do that means that you're setting yourself up to be separated from your parents, right? And this is December, so sometime next week or the next 2 weeks, I'll be putting out a video about what happens with when you become fatherless, because it was in December my father died, right? And you understand like the bittersweet relationship and love that the dynamic of what that looks like between when the abuser and the abused are parent and child, right? And so it's weird, right? But the truth is that in that moment, whatever helps you. And I can assure you this, if your own father is molesting you, chances are he's molesting other girls out there. And so you're not doing this just for yourself, but also for other people who might become victims, because in that timeline I was living with him, there was somebody else we used to sometimes go spend time with when he's out of town, that I could control. I just told my father, I'm not going to stay with these people whenever you're not around anymore. End of story, period. Right? And so that I could control. But living with my father, I could not control that. And there was no way out for me. I tried to open up. That didn't work. I didn't have phones to set trap. I didn't have anything. I didn't even think about it at that time, right? And I know that if someone maybe had shared some of these tips with me, then maybe I would have known what to do. Looking back, I realized that organizations that help even existed at the time. Yes, they're not as prominent as they are now, but if maybe someone had known or had known about it, maybe I'd have been able to walk in there and say, hey, here's what's going on. I need help, and they'll know what to do and they'll know how to protect me. But I didn't have that. I didn't know that. And so here we are. But I know that in today's world, this is still the reality of a lot of people, because the truth is that statistics show that, 97% of abusers are known by their victims. And quite frankly, about 60% of that 97% are close family relatives. So that's the unfortunate reality of what the world we're living in. So I don't know who is in that place where maybe you find yourself living with somebody who abuses you. If you're an adult, you have the power of decision. Please decide to save yourself. If you're a minor and you don't know what to do, then you want to accept that it's happening, and so that clears you up to take decisions, to take steps. Report them to somebody that you can trust or that can help you. If they believe you, good, they'll probably take it up from there and you'll be removed from the situation. If they don't believe you, then set traps, gather evidences that you can, and then you want to understand how this person deals. Know what triggers their moments of abuse towards you, and as much as possible, avoid, dealing with them and avoid situations. And then, finally, find organizations that you can report to. There are lots of organizations, and like I said, I'll put some in the link in the description box. I know this is not exactly the best kind of topic you'll want to hear about, in this first week of December, but it's a very vital topic. And as we, take this time to really just hone in on talking about elimination of violence against women and girls, I just want us to understand that if one of us are not okay, all of us are not okay. So what you can do to add your voice to this is like this video, comment on it, tell me what you learned, tell me who you, well, maybe not who you're sharing this with, but something that you're taking away from this. And even just for us is that when people come to us and say this is happening, don't lose it. Look into it before you start discarding things. So I really hope this has helped somebody. And I just want to take a moment to pray over anyone who's going through any abusive experiences, that God will give you the grace, the courage to step on out and make decisions that keeps you safe and keep those around you safe and comfort you in the way that only He can. I pray and ask in Jesus' name. Thank you very much. Have a great week, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.